And welcome to this meeting of the Audit, Risk and Assurance Committee on Wednesday, 2nd of August 2023. Everybody is very welcome to the meeting. I hope that we have no technical hitches, but if we do, or if I get thrown off the call, then I would ask if Grant McRae could step in and chair the meeting until I can get back online. Okay. Can I begin by asking if there are any apologies apart from Katharina Casper, who is unable to join us today and has sent her apologies? Anybody else? No. Thank you. Now, can I also ask if we have any declarations of interest? Nope. Thank you very much. Can I take us then to item 1.3 on our agenda, which is the minute of the meeting that we had on the 22nd of June? And ask if everybody is comfortable with that minute as a true record of the meeting. Thank you. And item 1.4 is the action log arising from that minute. And I would ask if everybody is comfortable with that and with the proposals for the items that we've listed there, either being closed or remaining open. Okay. And finally, can I ask if members are comfortable with taking items 7 to 10 on the agenda in private? Thank you. Just mention that we have with us today online Martin Evans, who's the chair of the authority. He's simply observing the meeting, and you're very welcome, Martin. Michelle Miller had also hoped to join us, particularly in relation to item 4.4 and 4.5, but she's unable to do so, but she has provided some very useful comments for committee, so thank you for that, Michelle. Okay, if we've dealt with all of the standing items, we're moving then to item 2.1, which is the internal audit update, and we have a report for discussion presented and Claire Robertson from BDO. So am I handing over to you, John?
Thank you, Chair. Just very brief introduction for myself. This is our first ever progress report and follow-up report from BDO. There are some changes in the style of report and the way that BDO work compared to what we would normally do. So Claire is going to provide you just a quick overview about how their reports work, just since it's the first time we're doing that. We do have one internal audit report, core financial controls, later on the agenda. There had been one further report that was due to be provided to you today. However, that's not been finalised in time for this meeting. I'm sure Claire can maybe explain a little bit more about that. But otherwise, I'll just pass straight over to Claire from BDO.
Thank you, John. Claire.
So yes, our progress report just gives an update on the progress of the plan since the last meeting, and you'll see that the decision-making governance review plan to be presented remains at draft report stage, just pending a further meeting with management to agree the actions relating to that report. We are broadly delivering the plan to the agreed timeline though, and currently on track to complete all the scheduled reviews for the November meeting. Within that report, you'll see the progress report kind of builds up over the year to include a summary of all the significant findings, all of the kind of follow-up status, and all the opinions that we reach on each report. So you'll see that each meeting and begin to get a sense of like how that provides an overview of the outputs of our work during the year. I will cover the results of the core financial systems audit because that's later in the agenda. But just to say on the follow-up, there will be a few changes, I guess, to how we approach that. So previously, only high and very high recommendations were followed up, and we want to move towards following up on all the recommendations from the next meeting. The one this time is a bit of a hybrid where we've included the medium risk recommendations, and that's just due to the kind of time available within kind of management diaries to go over all these recommendations and provide the evidence. But going forward, that will include all recommendations. At this time in our work, we've been able to close 9 of the 19 actions, though a further 4 were partially implemented, 4 not started, and there were 2 that couldn't be tested just yet due to no evidence being available, but a good level of progress on those recommendations and a chance at the next meeting to give a more detailed look at the overall picture.
Okay, Thank you very much, Claire. The report's very clear and well laid out, so thank you for that. And we'll undoubtedly get used to the new style of reporting quite quickly, I would imagine, so thank you. Can I ask if any members of the committee have any comments or questions on this report? Grant.
Thank you, Mary. My only comment is to say I found it very, very readable, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Yeah, I think it's very helpful that you're going to move to follow up on all recommendations. So this is, as you say, a hybrid and a beginning on that, but I think we'll find that useful as a committee to ensure that we have oversight of the implementation of all your recommendations. So thank you for that. If there are no further comments or questions, then we can move on to item 2.2. Which is the Police Scotland Audit and Improvement Recommendation Tracker for Q1 of 2023-24. So this is a report which is here for discussion and presented by the Head of Policy, Audit, Risk and Assurance at Police Scotland. So Angela, I see you on screen. Can I pass over to you?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. I'll just give it a brief introduction, if that's okay, and I'll pass on to Donna Adam, who will take you through that full report. As you're aware, this is an update for Q1. Police Scotland currently has 183 recommendations that are open across 36 publications. This is a high number, but reflects the amount of scrutiny that Police Scotland are under at the moment. It's also, I believe, important to reflect that 76% of these recommendations have been made in the past year. We do, however, recognise that there are a high number of recommendations that are overdue, but as you'll be aware, they're all not straightforward and due to a level of complexity and interdependency. But what I can assure you is that there's a high degree of management and oversight of these recommendations applied through our governance structure and led by Donna Adam and her team. So if agreeable, I'll pass you over to Donna, who will take you through a bit more detail in the report that we've provided today.
Thank you. Yes, Donna, welcome.
Morning, everyone. Okay, I'll just take you through the highlights in the report, and if you've got any questions, you can ask away. This is Q1, so it's the period April to June 23. As Angela said, there's 183 recommendations open. We added 26 new recommendations since the last time that we reported. 16 of those were relating to internal audit, and 8 recommendations were from independent reviews. During the period, we had 60 recommendations that were due for closure up to the end of June. We successfully closed 45 of those, but there are a number that were either pending evidence or, as Claire has mentioned, we need to provide further evidence to BDO in order to get those closed. There were 10 recommendations where we had delayed them previously, and these were the revised timescale or revised milestones, and they have not been met either. So in total, there was 78% achieved on time for the quarter. We have 6 recommendations that are pending, and by that we mean that we think we've completed all of the action. We're awaiting an outcome or another dependency, and we've got 6 of those, and they are shown within slides 3 to 5 within this pack. We've got 3% of the recommendations have a very high risk status and 15% have a high risk status. Overall, we've got 83% of the recommendations are on track according to their original timescale. That means there's been 31 delayed, and that's because they're either their complexity, we've reprioritized, things are changing and we're reprioritizing, or they have another dependency and we're waiting for something else to happen before we can move on to the next stage. They're not entirely straightforward, but I've provided some further detail in relation to those within the slide at page 6. As well as those which were not met in the quarter that you have not previously seen. So there's one there in relation to vetting and one in relation to our compliance PAVA airwave audit in relation to training. So they have revised timescales. In relation to our trends, we saw the closure of 6 older recommendations within the last quarter, which was really quite significant, and it's meaning that we've got a much smaller number that are open that are over 3 years old. And the themes are largely the same. The better practice is still our predominant theme, which means that there are better ways of doing things rather than relating to a sort of non-compliance. And that's all I would like to say. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Donna. Can I ask any committee members if they have any comments or questions? I think if we looked for them, oh sorry, Katrina.
Sorry, Mary. I think that was a bit of a cursor mistake there.
Okay. Thanks then. Grant, you wanted to come in?
Yes, thanks, Mary. Donna, thank you very much for explaining the progress that's been made. One of the things I'm always conscious of with any internal audit follow-up and implementation of recommendations is that at the time the recommendation is made, there's often a degree of optimism in when things can be done by. And I'm just wondering if, given the sheer volume of outstanding ones, whether you've got any way of actually reviewing with all those concerned whether the original time expectation is in any way still realistic, or whether in fact some further rethinking of that would be helpful, rather than continually going through, say, every quarter being told no, it's not quite ready yet, and what have you. Just having a fresh look at it so that it becomes more realistic and more meaningful to everybody.
Thanks, Grant.
Yes, sorry, we do that. We have regular engagement with the business areas where we're looking at not just the recommendations relating to a particular publication, but we're looking at them across all of the publications that we receive recommendations for. We also undertake some deep dives, and we've done deep dives in relation to a number of publications. Most recently, we've done one for hate crime because things have changed, and HMICS, we've engaged their support and they've done that activity with us. We do that fairly regularly, where we interrogate, my team work with business area, and we interrogate some of the progress that's been made. We look for alternative ways. We're advising the business area of courses of action. If we've seen something elsewhere, we can make suggestions. So we are doing that with the business areas on an ongoing basis. But you are right, there's a higher number of recommendations now than we've had previously, and I can see I've just done some reports again for the last couple of months, and that's increased yet again. So there's no sort of let up on it, and we are encouraging the business areas, when they're getting recommendations, we're encouraging them to put that within their own delivery plans. So when they're building their delivery plans to meet the annual policing plan, we're asking them to build that in. So they've done that recently with the domestic abuse HMICS thematics, and they've built that into the delivery plan, and we think there's a higher degree of compliance with the timescales that they set when they build it into their planning, and they're considering it and prioritising it alongside all of their other activity, rather than just treating this as a standalone piece of work where they're integrating it in with their other work.
Right, thanks, Donna. I think that that will be hopefully fruitful in bringing a touch of reality to it, that people can actually deliver within the time frame that they now think is acceptable. And the more you can do to make sure that when people are accepting recommendations going forward, they come up with the realistic ones, as you mentioned, the happier I think everybody will be. It avoids the frustration that everybody feels about continually following up and things are not being done.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's important that you do set ambitious timetables for things and timescales for people to implement these recommendations. But if you're too ambitious, and your report recognises that in some cases there has been perhaps too high a level of ambition for this, or if you don't take account of the complexities or the dependencies, as you say, then we do get a degree of frustration getting, coming forward. So I think that review is timely, and I look forward to seeing the results of that at a future meeting. Paul, you've got your hand up as well.
I think Katrina's before me.
Right. Sorry, Katrina.
No,
I
that's
wasn't
okay.
sure if that was. I wasn't sure if that was a legacy hand.
No, it wasn't a mistake this time. Thanks.
Okay, Katrina.
I think. Thank you, Chair. I think relating to what Grant's just asked, an example that I'm looking at is the benefits realisation sections that you've got here. Slide number 3. And we've had previous discussions around this and the the potential for actually be progressing this. And I guess my question then is, do you have any comments on how this particular area should be progressed, as it does seem to be slightly stalled, if you like?
Okay, I can provide comment, but I see Kerry is here, Kerry McKeever, and she is responsible for portfolio management. So I'll maybe hand over to her, but that is one that we're continually engaging with the business area, and we've got it in a pending section, which we believe we've tried different ways of showing that we can address the recommendation. We just don't have the evidence available yet to show that the process is working in practice. But perhaps Kerry would like to say a few more words in relation to that.
Kerry, do you want to come in at this stage? Oh, sorry, Kerry, you're on mute.
There we go, first one of the day. So yeah, just building on that. So this is one of those recommendations that when we did the audit was completed, we knew it was going to be a challenging timescale, and there was lots of conversation about the date and whether we would actually ever be able to achieve the first one. So that probably points to Grant's initial comment. So, but on this one particularly, so we feel we have demonstrated the process. So this was about being able to demonstrate where we are saying we're going to realise a benefit, how does it feed through into the performance reporting, etc. So it's not so much about being able to evidence we can validate the benefit, it's about how it flows through right through to performance reporting. We have not got an example of a benefit that fits that criteria, which is why it's not been able to be closed as yet. But we have worked with the APU, we've agreed a process that at what point, at a point when a business case is, eligible to flow through that process, we are content that we would be able to evidence it. So that's why that's still sitting open. I am waiting to meet with BDO to have a discussion on this one specifically, because obviously it was an ASET's original audit. So I think on that one, we are content that we've got in place a process now, and it's just about that evidence piece. So I've been very, I suppose, open that I've not got one that I can evidence at the minute. So I suppose we're in that position of are we content that showing that we can evidence a process is enough, or otherwise this one will have to remain open for a while until we have something that we can flow through that process.
Thank you, Kerry. Katrina,
yes.
Did you want to come back in?
Well, yes, thank you, Kerry. I suppose, I think we had a very similar conversation a while ago. So I guess the question for me then is, with possibly not knowing enough about the actual details, is this a process that actually is particularly useful then to, if you can't actually find an example of how to practice it, then perhaps the whole process possibly needs re-examined. But I can't quite get my head wrapped around how this has happened, that there's something sitting open for so long without any possibility of testing it.
Well, if I can just come in, and so my opinion is, I think it is valid. It's a valid finding from the original audit that I think we talk about benefits in numerous different ways, right? So, and some of the challenge we've had previously is actually if we say it's going to increase performance, etc., that where is that coming through you know, the pipeline, if you like, so performance is reporting on that. So I think it is valid. I think it just depends on the business case. I think that's the challenge. You know, some of them are not, don't have those types of benefits, but I suppose it's probably not a question to me, but that's where we stand on it, certainly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If I could just add, we will be looking before the next meeting at our first review of a project within Police Scotland, and that will give us a chance to get a deeper understanding of the benefits realisation process and some of the challenges around implementing these. So perhaps we can provide a bit more commentary on that in our next follow-up report.
That would be really helpful, Claire. Thank you very much. Paul, did you still want to come back in?
Yes. I maybe a little bit more specific, but can I ask about, it's the pending report, page 5 or slide 5, 3.1, 4.1 and 2.2, and they're related to ICT service deliveries, and it's from April 22. So it's just about some of the dates and the implementation of it. So the first one is, you've got a milestone date for 3.1 of August 23, and date is filled out as August 23. Does that mean that is complete, or do they have to the end of the month to complete that?
So if I could just come back in, because I do know the answer to this one. So these are milestone dates, not completion dates.
Okay.
So all three will have milestone dates of August, and by that we're meaning we will have hopefully an agreed position in relation to the digital strategy, so that we will know then which areas of those recommendations will be taken forward, and then we will be able to confirm timescales at that point. So those dates are really just like the next check-in point, that we'll know something significant will have happened, that we'll be able then to confirm once and for all whether these recommendations can be progressed.
That date column is for milestones?
Not always. It's a milestone on that occasion. But for the timescale date is usually the date of which it needs to be implemented by.
Okay, because the other two are unknowns, but we've got milestones of August 23. Okay, yes. Thanks for that. And the next question I've got is, I'm looking at 2.2, and I would have thought that's like 15 months since that was brought to our attention, and it seems quite a long time. 2.2, I get it's a medium risk, but I would have thought pulling together a catalogue wasn't massively resource intensive. Why has that slipped?
I can't, we do have a service catalogue, but I don't think it is as detailed as what the recommendation. Yes. So I think it's really to enhance that further. So we do have a service catalogue. I can go in and have a look at it. It's there. So I don't think Mr. Henry is on the call today, and I don't know that there's anyone from IT that would be able to help, but I think it's to advance it even further. Now, when they were undertaking this internal audit, they did know that they were planning on doing some work with the digital strategy and the new service delivery model, the target operating model, so that they knew that there was some changes to take place, but they didn't know what that would be yet. So when they committed to the recommendations, it was always knowing that some things might change in relation to this, as a part of, do they want to do some interim work just now, or do they want to do a bigger change at a later date that fits in with the strategy and is more efficient, basically?
So hence the slippage for 4.1. So does that mean by the time we get to the next audit committee, we'll have a little bit more light in these? Okay, that's grand. Thank you very much, Chair. That's me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the responses there. Does it? Sorry, Paul, you want to come back in? No.
I'm lowering my hand, which has popped back up again, so apologies.
Not at all. So if there are no further comments or questions, thank you for clarifying some of these issues for us. And we were obviously very keen to see the achievement of milestones, but also the completion of the process in terms of some of these, all of these pending recommendations. And some of them are high risk, and we'd like to see those given particular attention as quickly as possible. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else then on item 2.2, The next item, 2.3, is the SPA's audit and improvement recommendations update, and that would be from John McNellis.
Thank you, Chair. Taking the report as read, just highlights the first part is our first report for this year on the SPA corporate business plan or corporate plan. Highlights from that, 95% of the milestones that were due to be completed by this point have been fully achieved. And that leaves us with 4 of our actions which have either been delayed or rephased. And there's a little bit of information in the report that explains the reasons for each of those. What we are pleased to see, though, is at this point in time, all of those 4 actions will still be achieved within the financial year, just later than had originally been expected. And then the second part of this report is our usual recommendations update, so similar to what you've just heard from Police Scotland. For ourselves, there's been no movement since the previous committee, and it really just reflects the timing. We were only just a few weeks before having previously met with ARAC, and we'd already updated our report. There's not really anything to say at that point. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions from members? Yeah, Paul.
Just to say that the reference to toxicology implementation plan, that's on the forensics agenda for next week.
That's great, thank you very much.
Cracking, so we'll get, I've only just got the paper in, so we'll get more colour on that next week as how that's progressing.
That would be good. Yeah, I mean, this report is coming hard on the heels of the last one at the end of June, so yeah, I don't think we were expecting to see much change. But I noticed that there are a number of interdependencies with Police Scotland, and hopefully, you know, that the time over the summer will give us an opportunity to progress these, so that the next report will show progress. Anything else on item 2.3? Nope. Thank you very much then for that. Can I just say before we move on to item 3 that I noticed that HMICS has joined us. Welcome to Craig Naylor. Now, Craig, I know that you have a busy morning. You're publishing your annual report today, so I know that that's likely to be something that will be a demand on your time. I just wanted to say that if you're content to stay on the agenda at item 5, then we'll take it there. But if you would prefer us to bring it forward to let you away by 11, then just let me know. Okay?
Thank you.
Happy to stay on where it is. Okay, thank you very much. Right, moving on then to item 3. So we have the internal audit report on core financial systems that Claire mentioned earlier. And I'll hand over to you, Claire, for that report.
Great, thank you. As this will be your first time seeing this report format, so I'll explain a little bit about how it's presented as I go through, because I know it will be a change. You'll see from the front cover that we give an overall opinion on both control design and control effectiveness. In this case, we've given substantial assurance over control design, which is the highest rating, and moderate assurance over control effectiveness, which indicates that it's a positive opinion with a small number of exceptions to control efficiency and effectiveness. We did identify 4 findings as part of this review. Our reporting format makes a distinction between a finding and the associated actions. So it's 4 findings, but with 8 agreed actions in relation to those findings. Largely, this review covered high-level core financial systems, so it included cash and bank, purchasing payables, property, plant and equipment, and payroll. And we did walkthrough testing to verify control design, but then did really detailed data analytics, a range of scripts to provide coverage of 100% of the population around purchasing and payables and payroll. This work largely resulted in positive assurance and confirmation of good practice. The issues that were identified largely related to maintenance of supplier data. We found potential instances of duplicate or missing data, some inactive and one-time suppliers, and these can increase the risk of duplicate, later fraudulent payments or payments made to the wrong supplier. So the most important actions within this report are really around more regular review of those exceptions. We also noted that our data analytics flagged that around 24% of suppliers were being paid late on average. We took the top 10 by value and delved into the reasons behind that, and in 7 out of 10 of those cases, the reason was due to the supplier, their invoicing practices, or a dispute around the invoice. However, there were still 3 out of 10 where it was issues relating to things like assigning the purchase order to the wrong supplier, or delays in approving invoices. So we think there's an opportunity there and an important action to tighten up on those issues and continue improving the payment process. But other than that, the main thing I'd flag is that we found in a number of different areas there was a systems limitation. So really strong internal controls, however, not as efficient as they could be due to systems limitations. There's a lot of manual intervention required. So as well as being inefficient, there's a higher risk of fraud or error with those. We recognise there's plans in place to renew corporate systems over the next few years, and that in the meantime, appropriate mitigation is in place, and the system remains well controlled. That's all I'd really kind of summarise with this report.
Yeah, thank you very much, Claire. John, did you want to come in at this point?
Thank you, Chair. What I would probably add to this, just in terms of context, this is BDO's first internal audit of the SPA, and that this topic was quite deliberate for a new auditor. We thought it was very useful to get a fresh opinion on our core financial controls, being a key hygiene factor for the service. So in the overall conclusion, we are very pleased that there are substantial assurances, and really the findings that we're seeing in here are areas to improve, to move towards even better practice. So I think that has given us a bit more assurances. Again, although we haven't had any concerns about the finance function, it reiterates and gives us more assurance about the integrity and the quality of the service that Police Scotland provide.
Thank you, John. Yes, I think it was particularly helpful to have such a comprehensive list of the summary of good practice in the report as well, because that, I think we were aware of most, if not all of these, but it's helpful to see that they're recognised as areas of good practice. James, did you want to come in at all?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, yeah, the report it is the first one, so I think it will take a while to start to see the trend around, how many of the designs are coming out as substantial and moderate, and it will put it into a bit of context, because I think, whilst obviously we would want to have effectiveness as being substantial, given the definitions around them, I would imagine they're few and far between, and given the size of our organisation and the volumes of transactions, it's unlikely that we would ever or rarely be there. That's not to say that we will not continue to strive to get there, but I think overall I'm satisfied, and I agree with John's comments. I think having a fresh set of eyes is a good thing, and the fact that it's not found anything that is of a kind of significant concern is an assurance to me and to Police Scotland.
Yeah, and I think given the limitations on the systems that have already been highlighted, that also would make it particularly challenging to get to substantial for that area. Okay, thank you. Can I ask if any members of the committee have any questions or comments? I had one question. Oh, sorry, Grant, you wanted to come in.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say that I think the report is extremely helpful, and I'm pleased to see the number of items of the summary of good practice is very, very reassuring, just as the Chair has mentioned. The one thing that did strike me was that the review highlights suggest, for example, there are 51 bank accounts and there are 2,675 potentially inactive or one-time suppliers identified. Does that, I just wonder, and it's probably more a question for James to answer than anything else, whether there's any scope for cleansing the information in there, filling in the gaps where there are no bank accounts and so on, and more particularly reducing the number of active ones that are around.
James, do you want me to? James,
I was going to make a comment, and I'll come to Paul. I mean, just a bit of context. I think, like on bank accounts, there's been a huge amount of work done over the past number of years, and that number has come down substantially. It was in the hundreds, a number of years ago, and on the suppliers, I think the P2P system coming in is reduced the likelihood, and as we continue to work through our purchase improvement activities, of seeing one-off things. So I think there's a bit of a legacy hangover that we will need to look at. But I'll hand over to Paul, who can give you a bit more flavour to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think just to kind of emphasise, it's actually 35 bank accounts. It's 51 reconciliations.
Oh.
No, it's okay. And of those, effectively 13 are impressed accounts. So one of the things that we're going to do with James and Patrick is to sort of see if we can agree with, Malcolm and the ACCs, if we can start, if we can get rid of those impressed accounts and move to cards. So I think, ideally we'd like to get ourselves down a bit lower, but we're always going to finish up with around, I suspect, 10 to 15 bank accounts, just due to the nature of the organisation. But but we will look to see if we can get rid of the impressed accounts, because that's probably it's an overhead that would be nice, to digitize. Yeah, and James is right in terms of the suppliers. I think now we've got the purchasing and the procurement board up and running, we'll be able to kind of get more of them marked for inactive, and then when we get the upgrade done, we can actually get them off the system. It's just at the moment we can't actually take them off the system. We can only kind of mark them so they can't be used.
Great. Okay,
So,
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was the point I was going to ask about as well. So thank you for that clarification. Can I just ask, in terms of the 8 agreed actions, 4 of those are scheduled to be implemented very soon, and the other and one having already been addressed. So the remaining 3 are scheduled to be implemented between September and January of next year. Can I just ask if we're on target for all of this? Because 4 are due to be implemented this month or next month, so that's quite a challenging timescale.
I think, Mary, most of the actions for us are actually to go through and review the exceptions. I think one comment I was going to make is I think we're all getting used to the kind of analytics audits, which throw up a lot of exceptions. And I think probably one comment, we understand why, due to the, where this audit report, the meeting was in June, we could probably do with a bit more time to have gone through the exceptions. We haven't been through all the exceptions. So really for us, the main thing is to go through the exceptions and make sure there are no duplicate payments, check the bank accounts, etc. So, so we don't think that most of them are kind of significant actions.
Okay,
which is why we put those dates. So we'll make sure we get them done, or I'll have James nag me.
Well, we wouldn't want that.
No, we wouldn't.
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's reassuring as well. So we can keep an eye on that as the tracker will pick these up as well. So if there are no further questions or comments from anybody on the board, we can move on from this. Thank you for that report, and we'll look forward to future audit reports coming here as we move forward. So item 4 now is on assurance reporting, and the first of these is a significant report on the Police Scotland change portfolio, and we have an update from Kerry, and pass over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. So this is our standard update. I'll take the paper as read, Chair, and I'll just call it a few highlights, and then happy to take any questions. So the paper, again, a bit like John mentioned earlier, is a slight limited time frame given the last ARAC was slightly later than planned. So there's a little movement in between. So covered off, we did portfolio review. I think it was on the report last few months that we've done this, saying we were going to do a review of the portfolio. That was concluded internally, and we looked at the portfolio, aligned it with the budgets and the capability and capacity within the organisation. So the portfolio really is remaining static. There's no proposals. You'll remember from last year there was some work done on prioritisation. So there's no proposals to stop anything that's currently on the portfolio. I mean, that's a continual piece of work, if I'm being honest, because depending on the financial challenges, which we know that we continue to have, that could change in the coming weeks and months. But as we stand, the portfolio is as it was, and that was validated at the change board last month. Design pieces, I was just going to call it a couple of things. Work continues on local policing service delivery review. The work in C Division and N Division are primarily complete. We're working with, obviously this work is key to the service design piece that we're doing, and that is alongside local policing, we're looking at working with MC&E and the PPU work to make sure that all the end-to-end activities are aligned. We're looking to, that work has been extended just because it took us a while to get the resource in place to support that. But we are looking to have something in September, October time to bring back to the relevant boards with an update on the research activity. NLEDs, I'm just going to call out quickly. NLEDs had a full business case approved at the Change Board. We've agreed that that will go to the Performance Committee in September for an overview. It's not required to come to resources just due to the financial thresholds, but we felt it was important that the SP were fully cited on the impacts of NLED. So we're taking that as agreed with the SPA to the Performance Committee in September. A couple of other things around about delivery. So as I say, limited delivery, one with it being the summer period, but also that our report was only a few weeks ago that we presented the last update. Key implementation, no surprise, I'm sure to anybody here, continues to be the CORS rollout. The next rollout is planned for September. That's all going well. We're going, it is a large implementation, even given the size and scale of some of the previous CORS ones. And you'll see in the paper, it's training 8,500 people, and it's got 8 million pieces of legacy data that we're working on. So it's quite significant. It will give us a national process, though. So I think, you know, it is a pretty significant milestone. It's all on track. They're about 30 to 35% through the training. Everything is all planned. And certainly at the minute we're confident that that's still going to happen. And as I say, pretty significant milestone in there. Business cases, I've detailed that. I'll not go into any detail, but the business cases that have been approved at Change Board are detailed in the paper. There's been no change request since the last ARAC. However, there was one yesterday, so just to give you a bit of a heads up, we'll give you the detail next time for the cause. That was really about, as you'll be aware, cause was subject to some delays throughout, you know, COVID and Operum and Unicorn, etc. Just obviously the ability to get into the divisions. That's all been rebaselined, still on track, as I say, to March. So no surprise, it was just formalising that. And the benefits have been rephased in line with the divisional implementations. As I say, I'll bring more detail on it next time, but I just thought worthy of giving you an update from yesterday. Engagement, again, we ongoing national change events. So there was one at the end of June, 150 Police Scotland colleagues were there. Numerous, obviously, change activities were cited, along with things like National Fleet and Taser, etc. Feedback again was excellent. We have obviously been asked to continue to do these. And you know, I've attached some of the slides and some of the feedback on that for the board members to see specifically. And just to add to that, since writing this paper, so CDI Henry is the executive sponsor for a probationer intakes this time, and there was an event held last week taking them through some of the change activity, because it's not something they would normally see until, you know, they're fully integrated into their divisions. But we felt it was good for them to see past things that we've done in the last few years, what we've got planned in the future as well. And again, that was really well received. Key issues, risks and issues. I have put a bit of an update just on feedback from last month. I've given you a high level update of where we are in relation to risks and issues. We did have one issue in relation to capacity that was raised at the Change Board, etc. Last year. We actually closed that down yesterday, and it's reverted back to just us managing it as a risk, because I say we have managed to, as part of the work we did on the portfolio, we have rebaselined our position on vacancies, etc. So that has been downgraded, so it's no longer an issue for us. Chair, I'm just going to leave it there, but I'm obviously happy to go through any questions on any of the detail in the appendices. But
Thank you very much, Kerry. Just before I open it up to members, and we'll undoubtedly have some questions on specific projects, could I just say that the National Change event was certainly, in my view, a very important event. A number of members of the board and members of this committee attended that. I went along, and I found it extremely useful, got a much better understanding of the list of projects that you've put in the report here by visiting each of the projects during that breakout session, and found in particular the enthusiasm displayed by those presenting, whether it was on NLED or Taser or whatever it was extremely positive. And I think everybody who attended was able to learn a lot, but also, provide support to the people who are clearly, working very hard to deliver these projects and deliver them on time. So very interesting. So thank you for including that in your report. Now, open it up to members of the board, the committee for any comments or questions. Katrina.
Yes, thank you. Really interesting report. Actually, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, a couple of specifics. I suppose one of the things that jumped out at me was that the areas, I think are there 1, 2, 3, 4 areas where the previous risk has been read, the current risk is read, and the future forecast is still read. And I think what really sort of jumps out is how much that's to do with, it's the cyber and digital world. And I know we're going to be discussing DESC later, but there was one area specifically that concerned me, which was the Modernising Contact and Engagement Programme. And I wondered if you had any comments about that, because to me, it's just such an important area in terms of how we actually interact and communicate with the people that Police Scotland is there to serve. So it just jumped out. Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, I can come back on that one, Chair, if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
So the MC&E piece, I suppose, to give you some comfort, the bit about the contact, so that's the SERP piece is actually green, so there's no risks in there at all. The bits that are showing red are around about particularly NICs. So you'll have been pretty visible around the issues that we've been having around severity defects as we're going through testing. It's a really complex environment. And I think the reason that our risks are showing red in the forecast is because we're still working through what those defects are. We're managing it really. It's pretty much got daily calls this National X, given the complexities. So I think we're content that's very visible, that the board is managing that as an MC&E board. But that's really why that and it's driving the overall programme to be read, just given the severity of it. But as I say, we are working through that. The defects have come down nearly by 60% in the last month. So it's definitely on a positive downstream. But until we've got those in a place that we're content with, I think it would be. I don't think it would be reflective to show those risks as anything other than red at this time.
That's actually really helpful. Thank you very much. And I suppose a kind of follow-up question then would be, it's really good to hear that it's going on the right trajectory. If the forecast is still red for that aspect, then do you have any sense of timeframes at all as to when you might be able to bring that down?
Yeah, we raised an issue report through Change Board last month, and what we said is we bring back an update to them in October. So that's where we're hoping it will be able to reduce them down by. That's where we're aiming for at the minute.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Okay.
Just before I bring in Paul, just on that, a report like this is inevitably full of acronyms, but NICS is one that's confusing me.
So that's our National Integrated Communications something.
And that's the cause of the problem. That's what's making this go red.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, can somebody tell me what that's about?
So indeed, that this is about it's replacing one of our basically how we communicate across. It's all our communication processes. So it's very linked to UCCP. So that was obviously based on the 999 piece, and then we've got the other piece. I don't have the detail of it, given it's a digital one, unfortunately, Chair. But I mean, certainly in the pack that we provide to Change Board, and I can send that over, there's a full detailed slide on the national communications piece.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Now, Paul had his hand up, but Craig has just come in. If it's on this particular point, Craig?
Yes, Chair. The
Okay.
X is the brain behind the contact command and control system. So it takes the incoming calls from 101 999. It takes the airwave messages from officers and back out to officers. And the new National X, if it follows the same pattern as happening elsewhere, we'll be able to start accommodating things like text messages, tweets, and various other bits and pieces. So it's a national way of receiving all of the incoming data on whatever platform and channel. Very, very complex, very difficult to achieve, and we are very, very interested in the progress. But hopefully that gives you a concept of what it is.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Craig. That was what was in my mind, but it's helpful to have that clarified. So thank you very much. Back to yourself then, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. My questions are another specific about one of the areas that's 3 Reds, which is the digital drives, the data drives digital project. So, and I'm noting in the executive summary that the GDPR is in red for that. And I'm just curious, is there any negative implications of this with particularly the Information Commissioner with this slippage? Are we likely to get into hot water with this? And again, do you have a timetable for this going into green?
Yeah, so that's actually moved on since this report was done, Paul. So that's actually moved now, and that has gone back to back to green, and that actual slippage has been resolved.
Super. No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any other questions? I suppose looking at page 5 of the report, where these projects which are consistently red are highlighted, I mean, some of these risks will be fairly significant, and you know, if a project is consistently coming through as red, it would be helpful just to know, you know, what's being done about them generally, and what the process is for ensuring that, you know, we do have a path to amber or even green for these. So a lot of that, I suspect, is about the pressure overall in terms of delivering all of these projects. There's a huge number of projects, not just those that are in flight, but those that are in the pipeline. So can you say something about how these are prioritised and what the criteria for prioritisation is?
Sure. I mean, with regards to, I mean, obviously this is a 3-month view, so I know that it can look like red, but 3 months actually, when given some of the complexity, is not a very long time scale. So I think there are various reasons. So some of these, so the desk for in particular was actually more around the resource available to them between ourselves and the partners. That just takes a bit of time to resolve. So, and I do know that there is some resource certainly from Police Scotland side is now being allocated, but it's getting it through the pipeline. So sometimes it just takes a bit of time. So these are all, you know, we monitor these all individually. And the other thing, you know, where we've got so modernisation contact, I think it will be red for a bit until, based on the conversation. The data one is trending amber, so I'm expecting that to move next month. And the virtual first piece is red because we're proposing actually some further work is done on that to look at what the actual requirements are. So we've paused it slightly so we can go away and have some of those conversations. So I think sometimes, yes, red might look quite stark, but there's none in there that are actually causing us a concern, and none of it is actually due to the volume of work at the minute, if that gives you any comfort. But certainly these are reviewed on a weekly basis internally within the projects, and obviously they're reviewed monthly at Change Board.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Is there some sort of roadmap that would give us an overview of you know, what's not just in flight but in the pipeline as well over the next 2 or 3 years, perhaps?
In relation to?
Just generally all of these, the portfolio, you know, how that's looking, you know, in that period, in that time period.
Well, we do have so we have a roadmap that shows the projects running over the next 3 years.
And is that something that could be shared with the committee?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty high level, because obviously the longer out you go, then the less detail there is. But certainly we have got something that shows all of these in a sort of timeline, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, a high level view of that would be, I think, quite helpful for the committee. So we've got Grant wants to come in, and then Scott.
Thanks, Chair. Kerry, the presentation and the explanation in the slide pack is extremely helpful. Excuse me, extremely helpful. I just wonder, for example, if you use slide 18 on desk, the return to green actions, it's quite clear what is planned, but I just wonder if in future presentations it would be possible to give some indication of the timeline for expected delivery of these actions. I'm very conscious of what Mary has been talking about, you know, the challenge of prioritization that you've got all over across all these different activities. There's a huge number of projects in flight, as it were, and there are sometimes it's financial constraints, sometimes it's getting the right people to do the things. But I think to have a slightly better understanding of the expected timeline for delivery, I think would be helpful, and that may change as prioritization changes.
Yeah, so in the return to green action, there should be a date at the end, so it's a month and a year. So under desk, there's 3 actions there, and you'll see the schedule. It's the 08/23 is the month, so we're expecting that action to be completed in August, and the further 2 in September, if that helps.
Right. Well, so therefore, as things stand, and I know things will change, when we see the next version of this, we should expect to see quite a lot more green in the table under.
Yes. Yeah. Well, based on
yeah.
what's currently driving it, yes, unless there's anything new crops up, but yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kerry. Scott.
Well, thanks, Chair. It was probably just on the MCE point specifically. It was just to let you know, as ARAC members, that the Police and Performance Committee is planning to have a kind of detailed update on modernised communication engagement programme at the September Police and Performance Committee. And as per the same as what we did with productions, you know, Police and Performance Committee would then decide whether to refer to ARAC for a deep dive or not at that stage, depending on the assurance that they receive. So it was just to let you know and give you a bit of assurance that the Police and Performance Committee is interested in MCE as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott. Does anybody have any further questions then on this report? Nope. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kerry, for the report. And item 4.2 takes us to an update on best value. And from the Police Scotland side, that would be presented by Alistair.
It is indeed. Good morning. Thank you very
Welcome.
much, Chair. Just by way of context, you might remember back in January, the committee were updated on proposals to run a pilot that had been approved by David Page and his CMPB. So that pilot was undertaken. That pilot is kind of it's nearing conclusion now. We've been through closeout meetings, and just by way of a summary, that has been overwhelmingly positive. There are quite a lot of learning points, but they're not fundamental in that. This presentation really just focuses on the development of the best value function. I've just briefly run through there's only a few slides, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but just to give a bit of an outline. So slide 2 is again just a bit of a starter. Really gives a flavour of the process we undertook for a particular for the pilot, but we would do for any best value reviews initiations. It's focused on self-assessment. Obviously review then the evidence, and we come out with some recommendations, which kind of are agreed actually with the if you want to call them client. So the procurement team developed a lot of the recommendations from the findings that we developed. We're not well, we do have obviously a bit of knowledge about procurement, but we're clearly not experts in it. And some of the other best value things that themes that we'll be looking at in the future, we will not be experts in. We will really have to just apply first principles and draw out issues and expect the client then to develop the recommendations from them. But that's the process. So it's quite similar in many ways to an internal audit process. And at the front end of that, we'll be doing a plan as well of how we will go through, it'll be a risk-based plan of how we will go through the various toolkits and address best value at a higher level. So again, a bit of a sort of internal audit theme on that. The next couple of slides really sort of draw out some of the learning points that we had from the pilot, and you know, they're there to see. What I would say is I think some of the key ones are probably that training is really quite an important point, not just in terms of ensuring that the people that we're working with are fully understanding of best value, but really for a kind of a cultural change for the whole organization. But having said that, I think when you read our documents, best value is referred to quite regularly in our documents. So I think people are kind of attuned to it and ready for it. I think it's just important, though, that we have a common definition and a common language around that. And that's something that we'll be looking at. And very helpfully, when I was presenting this within Police Scotland, Don Adam identified that that's an area that her and her team with Angela in the governance, audit and assurance team are looking at as well. So we will collaborate with them on developing training packages. I think various different levels. I think we'd have a kind of Moodle package for everybody to kind of go through, maybe at induction or something like that, very brief, and right the way up to something far more focused and about accountabilities for ACCs, DCCs, directors, etc., to go through. So and to make sure that they're on side and supportive of the mission, if you like. So training, I think, was one of the important things that came out. The importance of evidencing the findings and the responses from the client is really important, and I think that was always clear in our mind, but I just don't think we got that across, and we need to be clear on what that should be, the format it should have, and the timeliness of getting that across to us. So that's another key learning. And I think the other thing is really just linking it back to the best value themes. So we need to keep those. So Scottish Government, in the most recent guidance on best value, have identified 7 best value themes, and that really does drive the work now, and that's what we need to pay attention to. So we need to make sure that we are focusing on those themes and addressing them, which brings me on very neatly to slide, which one is it? 5, no, slide 6. So that's where we have actually done a little bit of mapping work just to make sure that our toolkit approach, which is, you know, making good use of the toolkits that were previously deployed by Audit Scotland, that those toolkits do actually help address all those themes, but we need to keep our eye very closely on those themes and make sure that we are addressing them. Okay, that was that. So on to slide 7, sort of forward plan of some of the key activity there. And you can see there's sort of 3 strands: recruitment, training, and actually sort of start looking at getting the best value reviews underway. Recruitment, I mean, there's just a small asterisk there, but it's you know, it's a very, very challenging environment at the moment. So, you know, that's something that you know, and I'll be talking to David Page and to James about, but you know, we're under no illusions that we're, you know, going to be able to recruit a team at short, you know, without having to go through the appropriate governance and look at the prioritization across all the other areas within Police Scotland that you know, are crying out for resource as well. So something keenly aware of. Training I've already talked about. And then, as I said, mentioned about best value reviews, coming up with a plan, a bit like an internal audit plan, risk-based, looking at where we're going to go next. So that's other key work underway. And maybe just worth pointing out as well, at the top of that slide, you know, we've got some just high-level milestones, but in October, we're hoping to sit down, maybe it might be November, I'm sure. The Chief Constable, the new Chief Constable, will be very busy in October, but looking to sit down with her and talk to her about her statutory duties in relation to best value and our proposals around that and what we're doing to cover them. I mean, that's really the kind of key elements of this presentation. I don't really propose to go through the next two. They're just kind of summaries and tidying up. But very happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Yes, I'm sure the presentation to the new Chief Constable will concentrate minds, particularly in relation to the resourcing of this. She'll want to have an understanding of that, given that she will have statutory responsibilities, as you say. So, yeah, hopefully you can get in her diary quite quickly.
Yeah, I think work is already underway on that, so.
That's good. Okay, can I open it up to members of the committee? Grant.
Thank you, Chair. Alistair, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's very clear what you want to do. To me, what jumps out is the dependency on recruiting the right people. And this is a sort of semi-specialist area. And I do wonder whether you have a sort of, if you like, plan B, if you can't attract people with the right skills. The sort of thing that would occur to me is that there's probably some degree of expertise available within local government or Audit Scotland in these sort of areas, and perhaps secondment route might be one way of getting some form of impetus and getting things moving. But I just wonder what your thoughts were on the challenges of recruitment.
That's an excellent point, actually, Grant, and yes, I have given that some thought, but I haven't. You've introduced another couple of suggestions there that I haven't actually thought about. So really helpful, thank you. But yes, I was, while James was on leave, I had a meeting with David Page, and we did talk about the potential for secondments as a route with the current difficulties with recruitment and getting the right people. So that is certainly something we're looking at. But I must confess that local government wasn't really an area I thought of, but I don't know why, because it's a great suggestion and definitely something I'll look at. So thank you for that.
Yeah, local government has had slightly longer than others
Absolutely.
to gather some expertise.
I'm kicking myself that I haven't thought of it, to be honest with you. That is very useful input. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Anybody else want to come in at this stage? Just while people are thinking, can I just ask, in terms of the pilot on procurement, it's one of the best developed toolkits, I think. So I'm sure it was useful. But what would you say was the key finding from that particular exercise?
Probably at strategic level, I think it's probably highlighting the responsibilities for what we've termed and presented to you previously as the best value responsible owner. So we've said we would pitch that at director and ACC level, and despite what we said, we dived into this, and we spoke to Ian McKee, who's obviously head of strategic procurement, and worked away with him on this. And really, for much of the review, forgot about the wider implications of procurement to the organisation, which is absolutely what we should be looking at. We're not looking at a team. This is not a team-by-team approach. Yeah. This is about our capability within the organisation, and I think that had we taken that approach and discussed with James at a more strategic level and not treated it as a pilot for proving various things that we thought we might, we maybe had a view on learning, but actually did it in earnest, which we should have done. I think we would have probably identified that. So I think next time, and this kind of dovetails with, what I said before about training. I think it is about getting the client prepared, getting everybody understanding about what the scope is and the expected outcomes and the focus on continuous improvement, etc. And I think when people are lined up to that, I think all those questions about, is it my team you're looking at, or oh, actually there's some other work over there, I think all those things would naturally drop out, actually. So I think it's a slight change to the approach, but I think it's really important to think about the best value responsible owner and get them to understand the accountabilities in regard to this, and that's entirely my fault for treating the pilot as something I thought I would know. I thought I could anticipate how it would run, and that's not right, really. So, hands up.
That's very insightful, Alistair, but you know, and entirely natural, because you start with something like procurement because you know it's a good team. You know you're going to be, you know, preaching to the converted in many cases.
Well, yeah.
So,
That's
you know,
right.
I suppose what will then be interesting is how you roll this out once you've got a resource in place, and where you go next. You know, do you go to another area where you could expect them to have, you know, a lot of the building blocks in place, or do you go somewhere where you're perhaps a wee bit less certain about that?
So it's possible we might go somewhere else that we have a view, or we might want to test ourselves if we're looking to run further pilot. At this point in time, though, that's not the plan. The plan is really to sit down with Fiona Miller and work through the risk register and use that to target the prioritization of the plan. So that's our proposal. We may, as I say, it may be that we will. So we'll definitely build a plan around the risk register. It is possible, though, that in the short term we might pick off another one or two for a tactical reason, perhaps to inform our approach to best value. But at this point in time, the correct answer and the intended approach is to develop a risk-based plan, a bit like, as I mentioned at the start, really, a bit like an internal audit plan that kind of sets out, and we may change that over, because it'll be probably a 2-year plan, and we may change that as time goes on, but at least we'll have visibility of where we plan to go and the reasons for doing so.
Okay, absolutely the correct answer there, Alistair. So thank you very much for that. Does anybody else have anything they want to come in on? No. Okay, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to item 4.3, which is a best value update from the SPA. And I'm handing over, I think, to John.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This paper is really a bit of an interim update for the SPA itself. So Alistair spoke about the 7 best value characteristics, and right now we're just coming to the conclusion of our annual assessment. So we've been having 7 different workshops looking at each of those characteristics. In fact, the last one will be taking place tomorrow. And after that, what we'll be doing is bringing back a summary of the findings and where we are. Indicatively, so far, we're seeing improvements in areas. We've had big developments since last year's assessment, particularly in sustainability, and some good work actually in the equalities area as well. So we'll bring that back to you, and then look towards our next steps. So again, similar to what Alistair was talking about for Police Scotland, we'll continue to do some of our own individual toolkits in areas where we think that there's best practice that we can learn to continue to improve. That's probably all I would say there for just now, Chair. And like I say, our intention is to bring you a further update to the next ARAC in November.
Okay, thank you, John. Throw it open to the board for any comments or questions. No. I think you know, it's helpful to see the progress since last year, and you know, particularly in sustainability, which I think was the area we felt was weakest really at that stage. So that's good. The issue of non-compliance, could you say a bit about that? Because you know, it looks as though there's 32% where there is non-compliance. Could you just explain that to us, John?
Yes, of course. The way the terminology is used in this checklist is probably not the clearest, actually, but in this term, we're talking about where we're not complying with, and this is really best practice here. So in a lot of the examples, there might be a characteristic with a couple bullet points. So, and maybe 1 or 2 of those, we are not meeting what is deemed to be best practice. So it's not that we're failing to comply with statutory regulations or anything like that, but there's things that we could be doing to continue to improve and be best in class. That's really what we mean. And we've been quite strict on our scoring, actually, during this process, where in these examples where we're saying we're non-compliant, there's maybe 1 or 2 characteristics out of a long list that we're just not meeting. So there's scope for us to improve. I think when we come back in November, I'll try and tease that out a bit more for yourselves, to show exactly what we mean, and some examples particularly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be helpful, because the base level compliance is one thing, but moving towards best practice and being able to show good areas of practice in each of these would be really helpful. I'm sure that's possible, but it needs a bit of work to develop the responses to the questions. Okay. Anything else from anybody? In which case, thank you for the update, John. And we're moving now to 2 items on the agenda relating to whistleblowing. Item 4.4 is the Police Scotland annual report, and item 4.5 is the SPA report. And Karen wants to come in.
Chair, sorry, I was wondering, is it possible for us to take the SPA report first? Chief Superintendent Henderson is trying to join just now, but there's just some IT issues, so it was just if it's possible to swap these two.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. And if Chief Superintendent Henderson can't get on, we can come back to that report after we've dealt with the HMICS scrutiny plan.
Thank you.
Okay, so John, you're on a bit earlier than expected, but John has a report from the SPA in relation to compliance with whistleblowing. And as I said earlier, Michelle Miller had hoped to join us for this discussion, but she's unable to do so. But these are interesting reports on an important topic. So pass over to yourself, John.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the paper as read and just confirm a few and highlight a few things. So first of all, just the key purpose of this paper for the SPA is an annual update as agreed on the effectiveness of whistleblowing arrangements within the SPA, and it takes a view on that. In summary, through the work that we have progressed over the years, over this last coming year and previous, our view is that the policy is fit for purpose, but that based on lessons learned from a previous case and good practice assessments, we're planning to make further improvements this year. This will also include engagement with Police Scotland on their procedure to identify any opportunities for alignment where appropriate. There's a continued focus on continuous improvement with action plans that have been developed as a result of both the lessons learned from cases and from good practice assessment, in recognition that there's always room for improvement with regards to both the process and the culture around about whistleblowing and the comfort to raise concerns. Within SPA Corporate, we've taken specific measures over the last 2 years to measure confidence, to raise concerns, and that's particularly important given the size of our organisation, where you couldn't with confidence say that a low number of people raising concern is a good or a bad thing. So the key thing is confidence, and we're working in the broader perspective to ensure that greater measurement of confidence across policing, because we feel that's really important, and based on conversations with ARAC over the years, it's recognised that's an area of importance for yourselves. In terms of our good practice assessment, other things in terms of positivity is that our policy is accessible, and that we have taken steps beyond initial stages of raising awareness about the policy to develop comprehensive training that will be implemented in the coming year for corporate and forensics, and with specific training provided to our complaints team, who have a quality assurance role around about definition of whistleblowing. Linked to comments previously made by the whistleblowing champion, it's less about inferring that you get different treatment if you're protected by whistleblowing. There's key, although that's legislatively correct, that there's key bits around about if people raise a concern and they don't call it whistleblowing, that we have training in place to be able to identify if it does meet the needs of the meaning of whistleblowing, as opposed to just purely relying on individuals knowing that it's whistleblowing and making that concern. So that's another key area of improvement for us. And we have provided the results of our survey, which show that in terms of knowledge of whistleblowing. It remains high, but is lower than it was before, and we seek to mitigate that through the more comprehensive training that we're implementing. In terms of confidence to raise concerns, it's really good to see that the strongly agrees have increased, but there's a recognition there's a slight decrease around about the overall agree and strongly agree, but that is all part of the wider, not necessarily just about whistleblowing, that's a part of the wider work as a result of the Pulse survey related to culture within the organisation about confidence to raise concerns. And when we implement the training, it'll be driven clearly by the Chief Exec with clear commitment around about the whistleblowing being a positive act. And just in short, and to close, the report outlines that we have effective whistleblowing arrangements, that we have taken steps to improve it last year, and we're planning to take further steps to improve it this year, and the details within the report.
Thank you very much, John. Yes, very clear report for us, and some really interesting data coming through there, so thank you. Can I ask Katrina if she would want to come in at this stage? Sorry, not Katrina Hen, not you, Katrina. Katrina Stewart, the committee member.
Too many
just
Katrinas.
realised we two Katrinas. Just
thanks very much. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting report, John, and thank you, and really very positive. So my question really is just, it's about the forensic services, and I was wondering, in your report you say they don't have an equivalent survey to measure knowledge and confidence, and I just wondered if that is, is that going to change? Are they going to start implementing some kind of assessment as to the forensic services?
Chair, can I come in?
Yes.
We have a colleague from forensics on the call who may want to cover that directly. However, the current position is articulated in the paper. But I'd ask Craig to come in after me if that's okay. However, the main thing for us is, and it was an agreed discussion as part of I think maybe last year's ARAC, and it links to the overall staff survey. And what we're really keen to do is embed the measurement of confidence into the overall approach to surveying, and not necessarily relying on bespoke, separate arrangements. Now, that's the key to unlock it all for the whole of policing. So we are making efforts in that from if I take my SPA corporate reporting for SPA corporate point of view and consider it from an oversight perspective to support members. But I could ask Craig to come in, because I would rather not speak on forensics behalf on that question.
Yes, welcome, Craig.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, John, for bringing into the conversation. We haven't performed a bespoke survey on this topic with staff. Through our management system, as John has articulated, we have the ability to demonstrate where staff have read and understood procedures, and through that policy, as John said, there's 96% of staff have acknowledged that. The remainder are on long-term breaks or are absent from the organisation. We also make a key point as a requirement of the 17025 standard that the Quality Policy Manual also makes reference to this area. It is a very important area, and it's something that we do take very seriously. And so with that feedback mechanism within the management system, we highlight it. And again, that's a document that's issued frequently, maybe once or twice a year. We've also looked to improve awareness by cascading through team management meetings, the awareness of this policy, so that team managers are making that approach to staff to raise that awareness on a kind of more frequent basis, rather than relying on the systems and the documents to say that we have this in place and that awareness is there within the organisation. It's perhaps something we could look at moving forward through the operating model changes, to make sure that the new staff that are in the organisation have understanding for that responsibility. But that kind of gives an overview of where we are. If that's
That's sorry, Chair. Is it okay if I come
Yes,
back?
of course.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. And it all sounds very positive. I suppose, you know, the next step would be, you know, it's awareness is obviously really very good. It's very high, and there's a high awareness. But the next step obviously would be, you know, to register how confident people are in terms of, you know, accessing that policy. So, you know, might be worth seriously thinking about that as a next step, perhaps, that, you know, awareness, and then do they have the confidence?
Absolutely. And for me, John and his team have been looking at the Moodle training, and it's on my to-do list is to support that and to look at how that supports forensic services, and that would be rolled out to everybody so that we have that measure as well to highlight that to staff.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And actually, to go back to John, I mean, your comment about, you know, trying to make something that covers the whole of the organisation, and that's, you know, everyone is applying the same kind of standards, is obviously to be welcomed. That would be good progress. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Katrina. Paul, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, it's in the same area. Well, first question is, why are forensics different in this? Why are they not part of this survey?
Dave, did you want to come, or John?
No, well, I can get having it. Yeah, that's fine. Can I pass to Lynn, please, in terms of the broader approach to Pulse survey?
If you're talking about, we're just talking about the Pulse survey. It's just for SPA corporate. We've been doing that. It's our third year we've done it.
Right.
So that's why it was unique, and we agreed to introduce a question on whistleblowing because it was a really good way to test that. But the survey is purely for SPA corporate. As part of our assessing staff views on the workplace. Yeah.
So the report itself, the wider report, has very low, i.e. no whistleblowing that's happened in the last year. Is that for SPA corporate, or is that for the whole of the SPA, including forensics? Because of course forensics are the bulk of the staff.
This report is for the whole of SPA, right. And when it's specifically about corporate or forensics, it makes specific reference. So
okay.
The answer is yes, it's about the whole of SPA in terms of being done.
Okay, that's grand. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's clearly always good for an organisation if there are genuinely no requirements for anybody to do whistleblowing, but only if we're confident that people have a knowledge and understanding of the processes and feel confident about using it. So I think the more we know about that, and the more we can track the levels of knowledge and confidence, the better. So the survey is to be commended, and I think the training plan looks very interesting as well. So if we can put our shoulder to the wheel there, I'm sure that will be very, very helpful. But at the moment, that looks very good, and it's very positive report. So thank you very much for that. Now, we have got Chief Superintendent Henderson with us. She looks as though she's being described as Thomas Barnes on the screen, but we know that that's you, Katrina. So you've got the Police Scotland annual whistleblowing report here for us. So happy to pass over to you for that report.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Please accept my sincere apologies for my slight delay in attendance there. We've presented an outline report in terms of positional update around about the whistleblowing position for Police Scotland. If you're okay, Chair, I'll pull out some of the key highlights from the report, and more than happy to take any questions as members see fit. So you'll see that there's an overarching total figure of referrals received at the PSD gateway of 3,084 referrals throughout the year in total. We've provided a table on page 2 that gives a detailed breakdown of what that just over 3,000 referrals looks like, with the main composite being held within business interest referrals, notifiable association referrals, performance referrals, and matters that have been categorised under other criminal behaviour, which is accounted for just over 200. So that basically, by way of explanation, relates to anything that hasn't been categorised in another suitable category in the table. You'll see that of the 3,084, we have assigned 14 reports with whistleblowing statement status. That's an increase of 4 in the year prior. Within those 14, there's been 15 individual officers or police staff members formally recognised as whistleblowers as well. Within section 2, there's a detailed descriptive of a definition of whistleblowing, which we apply on every occasion when we are undertaking a relevant assessment. And you'll also see on the second table gives a detailed breakdown over the 5 years of the volume of referrals that we've received over the years. So you'll see that there has been a significant continued upward trend, not least of all that's taken us to the 3,084 of the year 2022-2023. Members will be aware that whistleblowing has its dedicated chief inspector who takes to do with the receipt of such referrals and undertakes the appropriate assessments accordingly. We are well tied into and well engaged with Protect, which is an independent external support agency for whistleblowing. We are regular attenders at relevant seminars, and we've just renewed our contract with Protect for a further year. As part of our next steps, we're currently looking to do a benchmarking exercise with on the understanding that Protect will give us some current and up-to-date feedback in terms of where we are at in terms of our approach, and we're keen to ascertain any options for learning and continuous improvement. We are also currently reviewing the whistleblowing guidance. We are at the final stages of that, and there will be some amendments made, and there'll be a revised version published early course. We're also looking to meet with SPA as well to look for opportunities to align Police Scotland with SPA policy as well, which would be good practice in terms of consistency. In year 2021-2022, we received some feedback from Protect as a result of the benchmarking exercise, which gave us a couple of points to build on, which we are still working through in terms of the implementation of a network of whistleblowing advocates, as well as looking to be more explicit in communicating the settlement agreements to ensure that employees are aware that it doesn't stop them contacting regulators if appropriate as well. And the lead chief inspector has got that work in hand and underway. We're obviously keen to raise reporting. We see the increase in reporting into the gateway as an increase in confidence to report. The organisation as a whole are doing a huge amount of work in terms of the policing together. Within that, PSD have got a really strong footprint in terms of articulating a sort of educational campaign round about our 10 standards of professional behaviour. Within those themes, we're continually articulating the need to refer and report matters of concern and articulating the key and strong messages across the workforce that we want to hear reports and that we're taking them seriously and we're investigating them robustly. So we see the increase in the reports into the into the gateway and subsequent knock-on effect into whistleblowing stats as a positive, and as a result of UK reporting as well as our own internal preventions campaigns as well. We are looking to, at the end of the calendar year, we'll be coming towards the end of the PSD preventions campaign. So we're currently building a framework to measure the success of that and look to build on that in the year ahead as well. We are keen as well to remain current, and we're scoping out with P&D colleagues any opportunities to review and refresh reporting mechanisms across the organisation. And we've got a couple of matters under consideration at the moment to ensure that we are offering the best service and the best range appropriate to needs for colleagues to encourage reporting as well. So that's work that's very much underway and is getting managed through the Policing Together governance framework as well. You'll see on page 5, we've articulated a number of next steps for us to ensure that we continue to improve and learn and that the workforce have the confidence in our policies. I'm not going to go through them all, but by and large, we really want to embark on a benchmarking exercise just to sense check where we are. We're looking at other forces as well, just to see where they're at and see if there's any opportunities for learning and improvement that we can adopt from there. We're currently carrying out CPD and awareness sessions with divisions and departments as well. There continues to be Moodle training round about whistleblowing that's mandatory for everybody as well. Obviously, we continue to engage with corporate comms as well, just to raise awareness internally of whistleblowing and what it means. We, as an organisational priority for us, to ensure that the organisation feel listened to, that they see that we are taking robust action and that we are keen to protect and preserve them as well, and we'll continue to progress that work in a positive direction. More than happy if anybody's got any questions to answer those accordingly, Chair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Katrina. That's very helpful, and thank you for the report. Can I ask if any members of the committee have any questions for Katrina at this stage? Paul.
Yeah, can I just get 2 or 3 wee clarifications? On page 2, where are we? 2, which has the table. What do you mean by business interests and notifiable associations, which make up 50% of, or almost 50% of the Gateway Assessment Unit's reports?
Of course, no problem at all. So business interests, there's a mandatory obligation on officers to submit an application for approval if they want to have an external business interest, just to ensure that there's no conflict of interest with the role. And likewise, similarly, notifiable associations as well is a way that the organisation encourages officers and staff to declare any familial or non-familial associations that perhaps might compromise their roles as police officers, to allow us to support any relations and offer any risk management approaches.
Great. No, that's really helpful. The next question I've got is about the next paragraph 2.2, where it makes reference to the 14 reports recognised as whistleblowing. Now, recognising something as whistleblowing, that's just identifying the complaint as being whistleblowing. It's not actually judging whether there is substance to that complaint. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And do we know how many of these 14 reports have subsequently been confirmed as having substance? And yeah.
So regardless of the direction of travel of the inquiry thereafter, the whistleblowing status will remain. So I can give you a sense. So out of those reports, there's been 13 criminal inquiries that have started off as criminal inquiries and progressed in that vein. There was one identified at the outset that was non-criminal. So far of those, we've reported 7 matters into Cap D, which is the criminal allegations against the police department at Crown as well.
Right, that's really helpful. Thank you for that.
Just following on from that, can I ask, who carries out the assessment of which of those 3,084 complaints qualify as whistleblowing? So how do you get from the 3,084 down to 14?
So on a daily basis, the Gateway is the central receiving point, Chair, for all matters across the organisation. On a daily basis, the team at the Gateway assess everything and basically ascertain the direction of travel from there. So that is a meeting that's held every morning that's led by the Chief Inspector of the PSD Gateway. So through that triage and assessment process at early days, those matters that constitute whistleblowing or require a whistleblowing assessment will be quickly triaged and assessed and brought to the attention of the Chief Inspector, who will undertake the subsequent formal assessment.
That's great. Thank you very much. Can you maybe just tell me a wee bit about whether or not there's oversight of that and who would carry out that oversight? Because obviously, if that's the only, if they're the only people looking at this.
Yeah. So between the Chief Inspector, there's a superintendent that oversees the Gateway as well. But actually, over and above that, any whistleblowing assessments, whether to be approved or not to be approved, those that we have considered for any capacity will come to myself, where I review a review of the circumstances is carried out, and ultimately I'll sign off or otherwise on the application of the status. So there is levels of scrutiny there.
So from that oversight that you personally undertake, you're confident that 14 out of that 3,000 would be more or less the right the right assessment has been carried out, the right level of assessment has been carried out?
Yes, yes, I'm absolutely content with that.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for your answer in respect of what's happening with those 14 complaints, because obviously, you know, it's of interest to us to know how they're being progressed. So thank you for that. Is there anything else anybody wants to ask at this stage? There's a number of elements here where you highlight the opportunities you have for improvement and the suggestions that you're taking forward. That's quite a comprehensive list, obviously. I think one of the most important things, though, given that relatively small number of whistleblowing complaints for such a big organisation, is being confident that people have a knowledge of whistleblowing and have confidence in using the system. So in the absence of specific surveys, such as we heard about from, you know, that the SPA carry out, how would you assure yourself about how well informed people are about the process and how confident they are about using it?
So I think I could probably give you reassurance that our workforce can submit any concerns at all. They don't need to declare themselves as a whistleblower. That if they don't, we obviously consider everything for whistleblowing, no matter what. So in terms of awareness raising, there's a lot of messaging going out to raise awareness. There's a lot of training on the radar as well. We're working with strategy and innovation just now to come up with a potential framework where we can consider adding in whistleblowing as a specific topic of conversation to test the knowledge in the workforce as well.
Yeah, and the introduction of the whistleblowing advocates, I think, could be an important step forward as well, just to make sure that that within each division, within each area, there's somebody sort of highlighting this. Is this something that new recruits are told about, do you think?
So the new recruits get a generic input about PSD, about how we operate, and also how they are easily able to report any concerns without specifically talking about whistleblowing. They are aware about integrity matters, Crime Stoppers, the gateway. All of that is covered within their first week of joining the organisation.
Okay, so they know how to make a complaint, and they know that complaints might be made about them, but then they're not specifically told about whistleblowing, perhaps, because that would be picked out by the people in doing the work that you spoke about, the triage that you spoke about.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of actually surveying the levels of understanding and knowledge of this, is that something that's being looked at for when you do your next survey?
Yeah,
whenever that is.
Yeah, so there's obviously a range of surveys being done across the workforce, so we are really conscious of that as well. We have a good, strong foothold within the Policing Together work just now, hence why our team are leaning into strategy and innovation to see where we can get a footprint within the broader work as well, because we clearly want some key feedback about our professional standards campaign and the success or otherwise of that as well. So whistleblowing can be a part of that.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that would be helpful, and you know, that would allow us to be more confident that we're capturing everybody's concerns as much as possible. Yep.
Of course.
Thank you very much. If nobody has any further questions on this, then thank you for that report. And we'll move on now to item 5 on the agenda, which is the HMICS scrutiny plan. And we have Craig Naylor with us. Thank you for staying the course, Craig. Now we were it was very helpful that we got an embargoed copy of this yesterday, but that does mean that we haven't necessarily had an awful lot of time to look at it. So please feel free to take as long as you need to discuss the report with us. So just hand over to you at this stage.
Thank you very much, Chair. What I might do at some point is share some screens so you can see things in person. But I suppose where we are, this was published at 11 o'clock this morning, so the timing has not been brilliant for you, and I apologise for that. But I would rather have got it to ARAC at the earliest possible point. Our scrutiny plan is a 3-year plan and was first published in April last year, just as I started. When we published it, we were to say ambitious is maybe an understatement, and it's we implemented both the 3-year scrutiny plan and a new way of doing business, which involves a whole QA process around that. We feel that's been significantly beneficial in the quality and accuracy of our reports over the last period of time. In addition to this, we have brought in an element of self-evaluation, which we are still working through with both Police Scotland and the SPA in terms of how much time, effort and quality goes into that. And I've got to say, we are hugely impressed with the teams in Police Scotland and SPA who are doing the work around quality assurance and the efforts they make and the quality they bring. But it is a time-consuming process, so we are conscious that this has had an impact on the capacity of the teams involved to do this. We reviewed our scrutiny plan in December, learning from the first number of reports we did. And we've done it again just now on the back of conversations with Chief Executive and others, along with senior members of the Police Scotland team and the teams that the HMICS liaison team in Police Scotland. What we have done is try to slow things down just a touch to give the ability of both organisations to fully consider the recommendations we make and to take steps to effectively implement action plans to address the recommendations. I'm going to say the relationships we have are good. The quality and effort we get from both organisations, we cannot complain about at all. So I think they take what we do very seriously, and I'm very grateful for that. But just to run over the sort of detail of what we've done in the last 16 months and why we are doing things a wee bit differently going forward. We did a huge amount of consultation both with professionals, with partner organisations and the public ahead of this scrutiny plan. And we think the core themes within it are still relevant. So what have we produced in the last year? Well, we've produced a report on the contact assessment model within C3, a strategic workforce plan report, which is a big challenging piece of work, and we did a lot of work on that. Again, domestic abuse was very much focused on the victim and how they were engaging with both Police Scotland and with other parts of the criminal justice system to get a service. For the first time ever, we did a baseline assessment of healthcare in custody and have since published 2 healthcare in custody inspections of both Lanarkshire and Tayside divisions and are currently involved in further work on Dumfries and Galloway. This has been a big push for the organisation, and we're delighted that we are now able to do this and have set up a real understanding of what does healthcare look like in a custody environment, which is a service delivered by NHS in Scotland. We've done joint inspection work with the Care Inspectorate and Healthcare Improvement Scotland on children at risk of harm and adult support and protection. And we've also done a diversion from prosecution joint inspection with inspectorates of prosecution, prisons and healthcare improvement. So you can tell we've done a significant amount of work. In addition to that, we were asked to do work by the SPA on an assurance review of the SPA forensic toxicology and published that at the beginning of April. A lot of inspection work over a period of time, a lot of work to be dealt with, both in terms of self-evaluation and in terms of managing recommendations going forward. So we've listened, and what we want to do going into the coming year is very much work effectively to make sure that the self-evaluation is effective, is given sufficient time, and we're trying to do some work to sort of tweak the edges of that and make sure it is as efficient as it can be while providing information that we need at an early point, and the qualitative assessment by Police Scotland or the SPA to allow them to represent what they're doing and their plans for the future when we start doing the work. So I'll try and share my screen, so forgive me for a second, Chair, if I disappear off. Hopefully you can see that now.
Yes, thank you.
So that is pretty much what I've talked about in terms of what we've done up until this point. We are absolutely in the middle just now of work on mental health demand and how that affects policing, and we've done a lot of work with the SPA following a conference at the tail end of last year about what does the mental health demand on policing in Scotland look like. We were very keen to do this in partnership with other inspectorate bodies, but we've not been able to persuade them to do that at this point. But I suspect one of our recommendations will be that this should be a system-wide approach going forward, and this should be looked at more widely by other partner bodies. We're also coming to the final stages of both organisational culture and vetting, which is vetting is an additional inspection that has spawned out of organisational culture, but is also in response to issues raised by HMIC-FRS in England and Wales. We will be publishing that later this month or very early into September. So we're right at the final stages of that, and the detail of that will come out for factual accuracy checking in the not too distant future. If I move into what we're planning for 2023, as I said earlier on, we are slipping our timescales slightly. Now that's because of the quality improvements we've made on our process. So we will be looking from September onwards at missing persons and how the service deals with what was reported to the last performance committee of demand of 909 officers per year to deal with reports of missing people. That's a significant demand, and we want to bore into that, look at how missing persons are defined, how they're handled, how the risk of them is managed, and how partners get involved in that. We also want to look at conduct. The issue around conduct is wide and varied, and is again a significant demand on the organisation. Both of these will be dealt with in terms of self-evaluation prior to doing it, and we will also look in the operational sphere at the responsibilities within Operational Support Division. We would continue to work on joint inspections of custody. We're in Dumfries and Galloway at the moment, and we will be doing another 2 custody inspections before the end of the financial year. So that's a sort of 3-year we'll be doing. Adult support and protection, we have just got the green light from Scottish Government to process with partners into phase 2, which is more about developing a framework for self-evaluation, self-improvement, along with catching up on the initial inspections that were done back in 2017 and 18 of the first 6 local authorities. And again, we will continue to look at children at risk of harm, particularly in the space of looked after children and how that works, and that will be looked at also within the missing persons inspection. We are doing a frontline focus on well-being. That is very much a short, sharp, snap look at how does it feel on the front line, and how is well-being addressed for police officers and staff in the frontline environment. So very short, very discreet piece of work, which is really kicking off at the moment, and we're getting good support for both people in the authority and from the service on that. And the final bit for 2023 will be the managed self-evaluation of the SPA. We've not started that, but I know that Lynn is very aware of that, and that we are thinking of that. That's very much around the best value perspective. So that's tail end of the year into 2024. And then finally, again, we are looking for 2024, looking at a whole number of things. It's a very busy year. We will continue, as I say, with custody inspections, the joint work with other bodies, but we want to revisit domestic abuse, but very much from a victim and perpetrator look, and how to the service deal with that. We are keen to look at prevention around drugs. The challenge of drug deaths in Scotland doesn't seem to be reducing, so we're very keen to look at how do we get to a point of understanding how drug prevention work is ongoing. And we will again look at cyber, look at SPA forensics at the tail end of our process, and we have some frontline focuses on this. That, Chair, was about all I wanted to talk through. As I said, a lot of these inspections are taking maybe 6 to 8 weeks longer than we had planned. Part of that is we have a more rigorous internal governance process to do that, and we are giving more time for both self-evaluation and factual accuracy checking at the conclusion of these processes. That was all I really wanted to cover on the scrutiny plan and the revision to that, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you. The very comprehensive plan that you're presenting to us today. So maybe before I bring members in, I could ask if Lynn wants to come in at this stage.
Thank you, Chair, if I may. Appreciate that. So I think the scrutiny plan, the three-year plan was an innovation, I think, Craig, just a year or so ago, and we welcomed that, and it's really good to see that, and I know that the committee find it really useful, and we can see what you're planning to look at. So what I'd like to maybe ask is, has there been any revision to what you're looking at in terms of what you set out before, any new areas that have come along, or in light of what you've seen so far? Because I can't pick that up, obviously. It may be in the report, I just haven't have time to pick that up. Yeah.
Thanks, Lynn. To be honest, the issues that were highlighted when we did our consultation remain the live issues. What we have done is almost move the deck chairs, to be honest. So we are trying to take away from coming back in and doing something on HR just now. We've seen pointless as there's a new HR director. We've done strategic workforce plan last year, and yet we were scheduled to come in end of this year to look at HR. So we've pushed that back about 9 to 10 months. So it's more about moving things to try and work with the capacity and capability of both Police Scotland and the SPA to facilitate that. So we pulled Operational Support Division forward because it's an operational division rather than a sort of more corporate governance and central function. It's to try and give some breathing space to some of the corporate functions.
Thank you, Chair. That was my main question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any member of the committee have any questions or comments? Grant, sorry, Paul, marginally ahead of Grant, Paul.
Yes, thanks very much. I thought it was a very interesting report to read, and I particularly welcome the work that's been going in with HIS on health custody, because I know that was something that really exercised your predecessors, so it's good to see that work taking place. And also the joint working, the various thematic reviews. I'm particularly keen to see the mental health one take place. I don't want us to be in a situation like we see down south, where they're sort of announcing withdrawals, I think, prematurely. It'd be good to get a good idea of what the lie of the land is, and to discuss with government, etc., and other partners about firms. Sort of factual basis, I think, is very, very important. So I welcome that. And also, as an ex-chair of the Care Inspectorate and a board member at HIS, I always welcome joint working. So it's good to see that close partnership working continuing, even though I'm not in that role anymore. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. May I just respond to that, Chair?
Yes, of course.
No, thank you, Paul. And I firmly agree with you that the joint working we do with his and with Care Inspectorate is fantastic. Relationships are very strong. To maybe reassure you about mental health, don't expect us to come out with a recommendation that we follow suit with what the Metropolitan Police has announced recently. There's a different legislative basis in Scotland, which I'm sure you're very well aware of. And we are very keen to recognise how Police Scotland contributes to improving both community and individual wellbeing, particularly in the mental health space, but also how do we get partners to be working more effectively with Police Scotland to manage the transition between critical incident and call-outs to care and treatment, which is their space rather than Police Scotland space. So, I can't talk too much more about the recommendations we're going to make, but to put your mind at rest, we won't be advocating for that.
Great, that's good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Grant.
Thanks, Chair. Craig, thank you very much for your report and particularly for outlining the plans for the years ahead. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about in 2024, you got 3 strategic reviews in frontline focus, tools of the trade, role of an officer, and training and so on. I wonder if you can say a little bit more about how you envisage these being addressed.
Yes, thanks. Frontline focus is a new type of inspection for us. As I say, it's a very short, sharp, focused on the service provided to the front line or provided by the front line of the service. So the role of an officer is very much about what does an officer do on a day-to-day basis? How are they tasked? How are they committed? Are they supported well enough, etc., etc. Tools of the trade, do they have the right equipment, kit, capability? I'm sure we will touch on body-worn video, on airwave, on body armour, on uniform, on all these bits and pieces that allows them to be effective in their job, and taking the views of them and how they sort of feed that back into the service. And then training. You know that we've advocated for more sort of CPD type training on a regular basis, particularly in spaces like domestic abuse, mental health, equality and diversity. Not to say there isn't training going on, but these are the things that we would love to see more of in terms of face-to-face training, not just media packages. So understanding the needs of an officer on the front line to be trained and to be kept up to date is what we aim to focus on in that particular space.
Right. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks. Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a very comprehensive list of work that you have planned, and I suspect will be equally challenging this year and next year in terms of how you get through all of that. Obviously, we would want to be of support and assistance in any way we can. Particularly welcome the focus on joint inspections, which I think is something that we're particularly keen to see. But I have to say, looking down the list that you presented this morning, there's nothing that wouldn't be of interest to ourselves. There's nothing that we haven't already been speaking about and, you know, would welcome a view on. So I think thank you very much for that plan. We'll obviously take time now to have a proper look at it, and if there's anything we want to convey back to yourself, then we will. But at the moment, can I just thank you for coming along this morning and presenting the plan, and wish you Godspeed with the work that's involved, because it's a challenging agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You're very welcome, obviously, to stay on for the rest of the meeting. We only have one more item in public, and then we've got a couple of items that we'll be taking in private. The last item in the public session is our committee work plan. It's there for our information. Obviously, Karen works hard to keep this up to date and to make sure it's accurate, but I think we're just being asked to note that at this stage. Comfortable to do that? In which case, I think time for a very brief stop and break to allow the live stream to come to a conclusion, and then we can reconvene